we had this concept of first click, which is how often do you get introduced to a podcast? It sucks. And you go back for seconds. Never. Yeah. You get one click. So we need to make every moment count.
Welcome back to another episode of the Revenue Reimagined podcast. We have with us today none other than the sales rep turned head of content, who is the previous head of content at these small little brands that have done a decent job with content you've heard of, like, I don't know, Gong and Clari, two of the biggest names in the space. Now, founder of The Reader. He hosts a YouTube show, which is called Read Between the Lines, which has probably the best production value I've ever seen. The Reader newsletter, and he's consulting for companies like Notion, Audience Plus, and more. None other than Devin Reed. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you. It's cliche to say thank you for having me, but I am grateful that you are having me on the show. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. And it's like perfect timing as you like start up your, you've done some consulting, you've done a lot of work in the past, but one of the things I like to talk to like founders, especially newly minted founders, like what's that origin story for the listeners? Yeah. Why did you want to go jump in 2 feet? You've been super successful in all these great organizations and you're like, I'm going to go do it my own way. So what's that origin story for you?
Yeah, I've got two origin stories, and you can tell me which one you want, or I can give you the fast-ish version of both. But there's an origin story of starting The Reader roughly 6-7 years ago, and that has a somewhat juicy origin story. If I can tease you a little bit on that, give you a bit of a cliffhanger, and then there's another, perhaps the second origin story, which is a couple weeks or months ago, which is like why leave Clari and do the founder life full time. So Dale, I'll let you choose your adventure early in the show. Which one would you like? And I take no offense to either choice that you make.
I like the one that's like juicy. So
I'm in marketing. I know how to sell a story. No. So what happened was I was in sales for the first 6 years of my career. And at the time, this was, I don't know how many years ago, 7-8 years ago, whatever it was, I was at Eventbrite. And I was like kind of just realizing that my time as a rep was about to come to an end just by choice. Like I had, I found my groove and all, but, so I started exploring, I don't know, sales enablement jobs. I could probably do that. Right. And there's no open roles at Eventbrite. I'm like, okay, what about marketing? And so, I was lucky enough to get kind of introduced and built a bit of a relationship and, dare I say, groomed by this hiring manager. And she told me, hey, this content marketing manager just quit. We have an open role. You should apply. And I say groomed because she coached me like multiple times through this process. And so I applied. I went through the whole process. And the last step was a personality test. You're laughing because you know where this is going. And I remember taking it. And then like the what you always know, like good news travels fast. Like in this scenario, like I heard nothing for a week, after like, a lot of interaction and hearing back. And so I went, this is not good. And so it had been 1 week. It was Friday morning. And I walked to my desk and the little G chat popped up and it was like her. And it was like, hey, can you meet me in this conference room? And I was like, it's like getting a text like, hey, Dale, we need to talk. It's like, okay, cool. So I go in there and they printed it out. They had like my results, I guess. And it was like, you failed the personality test. And I was like, well, you can fail those things. they're right? Pass fail. I don't know. And so I remember them saying, you're not curious enough. You don't seem curious enough for this role. And ironically, Adam is making a very curious face right now. And so I was like mad and confused, I was very let down. And so I left that room kind of pissed, honestly. But I was like, if you can't get the job from an internal transfer, no external CMO is going to hire you, dude. Like you have to go get some experience. And sure enough, they brought someone in who was wildly overqualified. The gal they ended up hiring was like 10 years in marketing for an IC role. And I'm like, okay, I get, if you're going to hire her, just tell me she's better. You don't have to tell me I failed a personality test. You can let me down a lot easier. So I started The Reader with the lovely encouragement from my wife, who was like, go just start consulting or writing. And so I was making $30 an hour writing anything I get my hands on. Like, you need a blog, outbound emails, like I got you. And so that was the initial genesis of the Reader. And I did that, I was working in sales for probably the next 3 years at Eventbrite and then at Gong. I went to Gong next and was like hitting quota during the day and nights and weekends, and nights and weekends, writing for the Reader just to get some clients and some experience there. So that's the initial genesis.
Super cool. I love that. Interesting.
So I'm fascinated by your journey, right? Like Gong for a long time for me and a lot of people, when people are like, what do you want your brand to represent? Or how do you want to tell your brand story? It wasn't necessarily, we want to be in your face like Gong, but it's like Gong does it really well, right? And Clari does it really well. But they didn't start as doing it really well. How did you take it from what it was? Like, what's some of your strategy that built Gong into the powerhouse brand that even it is today, right? Like, there's so many conversational intelligence tools out there, but when people think CI, they think Gong. When people think revenue, and I say this as someone who competed with Clari, like I would hear all the time, well, isn't that what Clari does?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very, very fair question. I would say at Gong, I think they started on a really great foot for step one, which was, you have to, and it's been helpful. It's been almost 2 years now since I've worked there. As time goes on, you can reflect and really dissect like what worked. And the thing I have to give credit to is Amit, the CEO, used to be a CMO. So he gets marketing. Our CMO was Udi Ledergor, who's legendary creative marketer. The guy gets brand better than anyone I've probably ever met. And so those are who's at they're leading the ship. So you're already in a great spot. And then we had Chris Orlob, who with Amit launched Gong Labs very early on at the company's trajectory. And so to start with Chris, who's a great writer, knows the market, and then you have these data-backed insights. I mean, that's a great first step. Like, that's phenomenal. So when I joined the marketing team, I joined as a sales rep 2017 when there was like 40 employees. No, was it 40? Yeah, 40 globally, 12 in the States. And then I joined marketing 2 years later when there was probably 100 employees, something like that. And so at that point when I joined, I was supposed to join Chris's team as his first hire. As I'm taking the job, he's like, actually, I'm going to go back into sales so you can just have this job. You can just be me now. So I started writing Gong Labs, and, he was doing webinars and, some email marketing. And there's really two things. So again, I want to be, super clear. I got a great baton handed to me there. My thought was simple: scale what works and don't sink the ship. Gong Labs works. People like the data. They like this bold, direct approach. Learn that, add your own flavor to it, and just execute. And so for the first 6 months, it was how do we continue to do these data, back to how do we do these reports, these blogs? What are the mechanics that Chris has set up? And then how do I just double? Like, that was the mindset. There is no 10% better with Udi Ledergor. There's no 15% better with Amit. It is double, triple, quadruple. And that's terrifying to a lot of people. But when you come from a sales background, you're terrified all the time. So you're not really worried about some additional pressure. You're like, this is great. So that was kind of like, the kind of initial thought. And then the next was, I come from a teaching background. So I know that some people will always learn by reading first. Some will love audio. Some will be visual with video. And so I went, great, I have a gem. Let's, later we launched a podcast. Okay, great. Let's launch a video show. Okay, great. Well, you know what I mean? We just started scaling out channels by keeping that same strategy of data-backed sales tips that help you close more deals. And I think the ability to stay true to a strategy and to execute at a high level, we got this compounding effect that I don't know many marketing teams get to experience, because I think they just change strategies too often and they don't let it really play out till those lagging indicators come in.
Yeah. And I think, you were doing this early before it became in vogue, is taking one piece of content, repurposing it over different mediums. Cause now, it's all over the place. You just take a podcast, slice it up a bunch of different ways. But that was when you were doing it. It's kind of like in the beginning of Google Ads, or like anything that's in the beginning of it. And I always say, like, sales and marketing destroy everything that's good. So as you're going into all these different channels, like, people just use it in a different way. So it's super interesting. One of the things that I'm curious about as you're starting your new journey into what you're doing, I'm sure you get a ton of advice. I'm sure you've gone through a bunch of different processes in your head. What are some of the things that people have told you about like starting your own business, running your own business that you're going to be like, I'm not going to take your advice. Like, I'm going to do it my way. What's some of that? What's some of those things that you're going to just do your way?
So the question is, what is advice that I'm probably going to ignore?
Yeah.
All of it.
That's a good question. I think some of the advice, and I'll be clear, if someone by chance has given, is listening and the person gave me the advice or is thinking of giving or has given similar advice, what I've realized, Dale, real quick is like, I think almost all advice is well-intentioned. The challenge is that person is often giving me advice based on their career path 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and the world is just different. And so one of them was like, don't even leave Clari. Like, you need Clari, you need a full-time job. You're too young. You don't have and you don't have enough. It's too risky. And I had to zoom out and think, why would this person tell me that? And another person of a similar kind of demographic. And it was just someone of an older generation who thinks a little bit differently than I do, which is like, you need a corporate job. That is who you are and your foundation. And that audience brand stuff is cute. And I'm in the camp of like, audience and brand is life. Like that's going to open up it's opened up every door for me in the last 5 years. So I had to kind of, push past that. And these are people I really respect. If I named who it was, your eyebrows would go like up. You'd be shocked. Like, they're very smart people, very, very smart people. So I had to ignore that. The other one that's a little bit more recent, like in the last couple of weeks, was kind of the same trap I think a lot of marketing teams fall under, which is you got to be on Instagram, you got to get on TikTok, you got to be on Twitter and like scale to these channels. And again, I'm like, I don't know, LinkedIn and like my newsletter has been done pretty well right now. I think maybe the show is my next thing. And like, yeah, I don't know how Instagram works anymore. I'm just old enough with like, I guess enough kids that I'm like, I just know how to send things to friends. So the real like between the lines is just staying focused. That's something I promised myself I would do, is like the first 3 months is setting up the consultant side of the business, get the process down pat, get the sales, the process of delivering the strategy down, my own sales process down, and earn the right to go do that shiny creative stuff of like shooting TikTok reels or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Dale dances on TikTok. It's funny. I think a lot of people give that advice of, oh, don't go do this and you need the corporate job. And for some people that makes sense, right? But like you spent so much time not just building Gong and Clari's brand, but building Devin Reed's brand. And I'm going to give, do you know KD, Devin?
Kevin Dorsey?
Yeah,
I do.
So I'm going to give KD a little plug here, but like, and it took me a long time to realize this. You spend your time on LinkedIn or with Gong with Clari building your brand so that you can do your own damn thing, not that you have to sit there and do it for someone else. I love the risk that you've taken, and I think that being able to parlay all that success to help other companies do what you've done for Gong and Clari through the consulting is super cool. But I want to talk about the show for a minute. So the first episode I caught was the one with Doug Landis. Nice. And then I've watched a couple since and known Doug for a while. Incredible human being. I was amazed at the production value, the thought that you put into the questions, the deep research that you very clearly do for your prospects. What made you say, I want to do a show like this? Because it's fucking expensive. It takes a lot of time. Like, this isn't 2 minutes of research versus, hey, I'm just going to do a 30-minute podcast like, I don't know, the one that I'm on right now.
Yeah. Well, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with this style podcast. I've done 2 of them, one at Gong, one at Clari. Yeah. And the reason or the thinking behind the show was kind of 2 things. One was I needed I won't go into details. I was just this place in my life. I was in a down spot. It was, we all go through rough patches. And I was like, I need to take a big creative swing right now to just get my like juices flowing, to get my confidence back, to get my momentum back. And I've always had this like idea for a podcast. Like, if I launched the Devin Reed show, so to speak, like I've had ideas floating, and I was like, if I'm going to do it with my name on it, I got to go big. I have to go, I have to do something very different. and really challenge myself creatively. And I can tell you this show is a freaking challenge. Like, it is tough. Like, we rented out a basketball court in Chicago. That was the coolest thing in the world. I had no idea about setting up a studio on a basketball court. Like, they hated me there because I'm like, what do you mean I can't bring in my own furniture on this $10,000 hardwood where like professional players practice? You know what I mean? So stuff like that you don't think about. But what I did was the same thing I do when I am designing content strategies or even channel strategies, which is I do a competitive landscape analysis. And so I listen to 20, what I'll call content and marketing focused podcasts. I listen to all of them. And I just wrote down, what is everyone doing? Where's like the crowd, the herd? And one of them was, Zoom boxes. Obviously, it just makes sense. That's just one of the many. They all typically start with, today I'm sitting down with Devin Reed. He's the head of content and I'm like, I'm going to fall asleep right now. And I'm not even at Devin's like him yet. And, just like very surface level questions. And so I went, great. I made this list of like, what is everyone doing? And I made, what's the opposite? Okay, everyone's in Zoom. I'm going to go in person. Questions are surface level. I'm going to do crazy research. I'm going to surprise my guest. That's what it was. I'm going to surprise my guests with how much I know about them, at least at one point in the show. And the other thought too was, you can tell, I mean, you guys are very good at this, but you can tell in some shows, they don't know the guests. They like literally look at their LinkedIn for 10 seconds and they ask questions that were clearly written for 5 guests before. Like, it doesn't have any connective tissue. And so I asked myself, okay, what makes a great podcast? A great conversation. What makes a great conversation? When the people know each other and when they're comfortable. So let me just do that behind the scenes. And, so I know I'm going a little bit of a monologue here, but I was really just intentional with like, how is this show going to look and feel? And all the way down to when you see it on your LinkedIn feed and you see that, that thumbnail for that half second I have your attention, has to look different, has to be different. And so when you click into it, hopefully, and this last thing I'll say is, we had this concept of first click, which is, how often do you get introduced to a podcast? It sucks. And you go back for seconds. Never. Yeah. You get one click. So we need to make every moment count, be maniacal in the editing room, be maniacal about the location, the guest selection, like everything was really meticulous. And then that leads me back to, I really wish I had given myself like 30 hours a day during pre-production to put it together. But I'm really grateful for how it turned out. And the reception has been really, really good.
People buy from people. That's why companies who invest in meaningful connections win. The best part? Gifting doesn't have to be expensive to drive results, just thoughtful. Sendoso's intelligent gifting platform is designed to boost personalized engagement throughout the entire sales process. Trust me, I led sales for a Sendoso competitor, and I could tell you, no one does gifting better than Sendoso. If you're looking for a proven way to win and retain more customers, visit sendoso.com.
Yeah, it's super good. Like, and you're right. We're in this 8-second, 10-second world of like IG, TikTok. Like, you got to capture people's attention straight away, just like in any other technology as well, right? Like, we're working with founders right now, and if they're starting to use the technology, if the user doesn't like it in 3-4 clicks, like all of a sudden now you're not getting a renewal, you're not getting an expansion. So it's that way. Everyone's vying for attention. Like, where are the eyeballs going? How can we get eyeballs, and how can we get them back on what we're trying to put through? How was I'm super fascinated by marketing people that have been in sales, because I think the best marketers have been salespeople, and the best salespeople have been marketers. Like, I think there's an evolution instead of the divide. There's an evolution. But how has your leadership evolution worked since you went from sales as carrying a bag to leading a team to then going into the marketing group? Like, how's that leadership evolution progress for you?
That's a fantastic question that no one in my life has ever asked, especially on a podcast. So that's I really respect that question. Wow. Let me think about that for a second. My first thought, I kind of smiled. I don't know if you saw a grin creep on my face. Dale was, I worked at a sales tech company that we're salespeople selling to salespeople. So you got to earn that trust in the first 2 minutes with the CRO, VP of sales, or else that deal isn't going to go anywhere. And so I'd say I don't think the word aggressive is quite accurate, but you need to be direct. You need to be very proactive to be a successful salesperson amongst many other traits. And when I got into marketing, the DNA of a marketer and a salesperson is just very different. And so the way that you lead a marketing team and the way that those, you manage, personalities and expectations, I think are very different. You can be a little bit more direct with salespeople. I'll say a little bit at least, right? And I would argue if you're not direct in sales, you might lose respect with your peers. Whereas in marketing, if you're too direct, you will lose respect quickly, and you're an asshole. And forgive me, you can bleep that if I can't say if I'm not allowed to curse on the show. So
Adam curses all the time.
Okay,
I drop F-bombs in every episode.
Okay, I have 2 little girls. They're 1 and 3, so I can't curse in any other room but my office. So sometimes it's like the filter comes up. So I would say, Dale, like learning that, and there's a lot more introverts in marketing than there are in sales, and so just learning, how to manage and motivate people and make them feel heard and make sure their ideas, being creative is a huge part of marketing. And when you're an introvert and you're a little bit junior, and you got Devin Reed in the room who's like known, it takes a lot of skill and refinement to get people comfortable that they feel they can voice their opinions, and you want to make sure you validate those opinions. Whereas in sales, it's kind of like loudest voice in the room wins, and there's a lot of shouting and a lot of cursing, depending on where you look. So I would say that was kind of the first one for me, at least from that like sales to gong leadership role.
Yeah, I love that. Super interesting.
I find it fascinating that you went from sales to marketing, because they are they're different personalities, right? Like I tend to do better leading sales teams than marketing, even though like I do all go to market because I am that very like outgoing, super direct, pointed person. I think Dale, while a sales leader, tends to be a little more reserved and relaxed, and I think that's why cross-functionally he's probably better than I am.
Just because I'm older, man. That's all it is.
And that's probably true. That probably is true also.
It helps a lot.
Listen, I took your advice. I won't say what it was, but like the other day, like I was totally not myself and I didn't do something. What was your answer today?
Yeah,
You're getting older and wiser. So 100%, but that journey is interesting. When you look at sales and marketing, there's a lot of this, right? And a lot of our founders don't know how to align them. I'm super curious your point of view, having worked in both. Like, how do you really drive sales and marketing alignment? Like, what is Devin Reed's secret to sales and marketing alignment?
There's the easy answer that's been said before that I will say just to be clear, and then I think there's the slightly hidden one that we don't like to admit in the marketing team. The first one is the shared KPIs. That's the first one, and it's been said before. But I got to say it. It's like, if you're counting MQLs or pipeline influenced, and you're celebrating because you hit those goals, and the sales team is not hitting the revenue targets, there's a problem. And
this
that's
conversation with 2 founders today.
And that becomes toxic at the culture level, and that it never gets better from that. You have to fix that first. I'll leave it there. Yeah. There's a whole metrics conversation. Let's say you have that. Let's say you're like, no, Dev, we're all in on revenue, and I only get, my bonus is based on revenue as a marketer. The next reason is that sales doesn't trust marketing because marketing doesn't know the audience or the market as well as the sales team does. And so a lot of the marketing ideas and deliverables, as one CEO told me, feels 10 to 20 degrees off true north. It's not really how our audience talks. It's not really how our product works. And so then you go to the sales team and you're like, here's this deck that doesn't sound like anyone that you've ever sold to, right? Here's this, ebook that isn't focused on a topic that they've heard this week, right? Like those are the things where it's like, you don't really know what the hell you're talking about. So, and you're like doing these MQL things, and half those MQLs kind of suck. So F off, right? Like that's kind of the oversimplified, de-evolution. Well, there's a word for that. That's the correct one there. That's what I've seen happen over and over again. And so the answer, I think, is like, and I try to coach my teams on this, is there's kind of like this like triangle that I think of for like elite marketing teams, which is you got to go know your point of view. So like, what is your message? What does your company believe? You got to be a product expert. That's number 2. And 3, you need to be a market expert, which means your audience. I know there's like competitive landscape in there as well, but if you can get all 3 of those things, you're way ahead of your competition. The challenge is not one guy or gal is going to hit that for you on the marketing team. You need to build a team. Go get a product, go get someone who is like from product, bring them into marketing. Go get someone who is in, an accountant, because you sell to accountants now. Like, build a team that has these balances, because what happens is you get checks and balances across your marketing department, where someone in accounting, I'm working with an accounting tech firm right now, and they're like, the CEO used to be an accountant. He knows it inside and out. But no one in the marketing
use that voice.
But no one in the marketing team has, and they're not connected enough. A CEO can't run marketing, right? So those are the things. It's like, you got to get on, to put a bow on it, you got to get on the same page from a KPI standpoint, which is really the accountability standpoint, and you got to get on true north.
Awesome. I love that. So I'm curious, you were talking about your daughters a little bit earlier, 1 and 3. I remember those ages. Mine's now 18 and 15. I have a daughter and a son. And I'm curious, what's easier to manage, 2 little girls or the market?
Oh, man. Well, it depends, because the tactics I can use from a morality standpoint vary. I can lie to the 1 and 3-year-old pretty easily. They don't know. Like, magic is still very in the realm of possibility right now. So if I just don't know, or I'm a little tired, I can go, oh, yeah, it's just magic, or, I don't overuse that, but I can get away with some stuff. And I'm pretty creative off the cuff. I can come up with things. I would say the truth, though, is like, if I mess up as a leader at work, I'll own it. I'll have a conversation with them, and I'll feel bad for a couple hours, pending the transgression, right? I spoke a little harshly with Adam in that meeting, or what, I kind of, just the way I worded that in front of Dale, I really wish I hadn't said it in a public setting, and I'll call you down and go, hey man, I just want to let you know, I don't know if you picked up on it, but I'm sorry that I did that. Here's how, here's my intention, and I'll feel bad, but by dinner I'm good, because like, we're adults, and that's just life. We make mistakes. When you mess up with your 1-year-old daughter or your 3-year-old daughter, and she cries, or she gives you this look of like, oh, I messed up, Dad. You're like, oh, like, it's just the sucker punch. And I'm like, oh, I really messed this one up. And then it's like, I'm at bed, I'm laying staring at the ceiling, like, oh, I got to do better, Dev. You got to do better tomorrow. Yep. Now, luckily, I still go to my daughter in the moment, say, I'm sorry that, hey, Daddy, I don't know, I raised my voice, or I cursed on accident, never at the kids, but you might, someone cuts you off in traffic. Oh, you motherfucker. And you're like, like, how do you think my 3-year-old knows a lot of curse words, and it's from me in traffic, I'll be honest. Like, and so, the depth of pain, if you will, the guilt is a lot heavier when it's your own kids, especially girls. But I'll be honest, there's a lot of overlap. Like, just owning it is like the biggest thing. Like, when I mess up, I just tell my daughter, oh, I'm sorry, Daddy made a mistake. Daddy's not perfect. And she's like, okay, cool. So I can have candy.
Tell you.
No, you still cannot have the candy. I'm just sorry the way I responded to you at the moment.
I'll tell you, it's funny, because as your kids grow up and they evolve through the process, and you're going through these evolution pieces, there are very similarities to managing a team and managing the kids and the family. For and sure. Like, they respect you much more when you own it, and you're able to empathize, sympathize, and then change direction, because they see more than ever the actions are much louder than the words. And so what they see happening is what they'll emulate. So I can appreciate that.
Well, that's a good point. Like, when you think like team culture, like in the work setting, like, to me, it's just what actions and behavior you allow and tolerate, and what you don't tolerate. Like, to me, that's just baseline. And it's the same with like a healthy or a toxic family life. You know what I mean? It's like, what behavior does, it's not fair that Dad gets to act a certain way, but nobody else does. And so I would say without a doubt, and that's a surprising clip, I've become a better leader, whether in the B2B setting or even just with any setting, from having kids and just having that, like, dare I say, extreme ownership.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. It's funny how much parenting comes back to managing teams, right? I have a 13-year-old, and the tactics I use with him, or the tactics I use to manage teams, are arguably very similar. And like, I don't know if that's to say that sometimes I feel like I'm managing children, or that my child is like older than he wants to be, and I feel like I'm managing an adult. We could figure out which one that is. But I think there's a lot of overlap. I would say that managing kids is easier than managing teams, my personal opinion. To your point, like you could bullshit them. You can't bullshit it. If you hire right, you can't bullshit your team because they're going to know when you messed up. And I want a team who will call me out, right? Like, hey, that doesn't like respectfully, but like, are you sure? Like, what about this? Have you thought about that? Like, bring those ideas. Like, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to. Right. Dale will never let me live this down, but like, I want to be your EA. I want to get everything together for you so that you can do your job effectively and just be the administrative glue and help with the strategy. Very different with a kid.
That's a good point though, Adam, too. It's like, I know trust is like, obviously trust is important, but to have it, whether you call it trust or a safe spot where it's like, hey, you can always come to me and either say you messed up or I messed up. And it's okay. And it's a constructive conversation. You know what I mean? Even in a team setting, I've had someone say, like, I don't know, I gave some advice on one of our team calls. And she's like, well, last week you told me the exact opposite. And the room got quiet. And I was like, yeah, I'm not perfect. Okay, you're right. Like, okay, it's all good. And like, because the room got kind of quiet for a second. Like, well, how Devin, like he's been challenged. And I'm like, guys, I don't know everything. All right, I'm human too. I don't know. I forgot. So having that safe spot, and the same thing with kids, obviously, it's like, it just, I don't know. It makes it all very enjoyable when there's, that safety there.
I love it. Devin, let me ask you, what's next, man? Where's Devin Reed going? Where's the reader going? What's on the horizon?
Great question. So right now it's a consulting and media business for the reader. And so the first part is it's the summer of scale, which is scaling up the consultant and getting that business. I'm not expecting humming by the end of summer, but really, I don't know what's before that. Not idling. We're somewhere between idling and like just absolute on stride. You know what I mean? And so, Revving. Okay. I'm going to rev for a bit. But no, the truth is, I've been in B2B SaaS for 11 years and the pace is just floored, redlining for 11 years. And so I'm like, we moved to San Diego last week to slow down our life pace. I took this venture knowing I can control the pace. And so I told my wife, I'm like, you look at expenses, lifestyle, saving, investing, and we go, cool, this is the number we need to hit. You're not going to hear me say we need to double that this summer. You're not going to hear me say more. We just need to hit that exact number for 3 months in a row. And if I can work 4 hours a day, great. I'm not working more. Like, we're going to go to the zoo. We're going to go to the beach and enjoy this time.
Best zoo in the country.
It is an amazing zoo. My kids are there right now. Actually, I'm a little jealous. They all went without me. But
best zoo in the country, hands down.
And so that was it, like foundational summer, right? I want to enjoy the pool. I don't want to just be like in this office for 20 hours a day. So that's the first step. Over the next 18 months, my goal is to scale my audience on the media side and scale the revenue, right? It's basically audience growth and monetization strategy. So in about 18 months, they're 50-50. I want to even out those things. And then over the next 18 months from there, do less consulting and make the media the primary breadwinner. And we'll do that in a few different ways. Still sort of working through a couple business strategies there.
I love it, man. I love it. As we wrap up on time, we are actually our next call is with one of your old bosses. We're going to hang out with Kyle Coleman for a little bit.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
Incredible human being. One of my favorite people.
He's a sweetheart of a man, and I don't know if I've ever said that about any grown man in my life. He's like the sweetest man.
He's a good dude. Can we dive into some rapid fire?
Yes. How many words do I get? I'm notoriously terrible 10. At rapid fire. 10. Okay. I'll tell 5 to myself so I can round. I'll still go past that. Okay.
All right. You get 5 words.
Okay.
Early bird or night owl?
Oh, early bird.
What's the first app you check on your phone when you wake up in the morning? Or you check the first app you check?
There you go. I was going to say these words don't count. I don't check my phone in the morning. It's a very tough thing. First thing is Instagram. If there was a basketball game or in-season NBA, I know I'm going over because I want to know highlights. But if not, then email because I email.
Celtics or Mavericks?
Warriors. So Mavericks, I guess.
My kid would love you.
I don't really. I could go a whole nother 45 minutes on my
Yeah,
yeah.
you and me both. The answer is neither one. We don't give a shit. Move on.
Yeah, really, I don't care. I hope it's a great game tonight, though.
So on your IG, you have a photo of a tattoo of two racing flags that say "The marathon continues." What does that mean?
Yeah. Yes, great hip hop artist Nipsey Hussle is incredibly inspirational, and his brand. He's built just A+ brand called the Marathon. I'm actually wearing the shirt. This is the Marathon. So his whole thing is the marathon continues, which is just his like one of his great interviews was. I know I'm going over 5 words by a long shot, but he goes like, for all the people going through it, going through all the emotions. The only reason I'm here is I just didn't give up. I went through all the emotions. I went through all the hardship, and I just kept going. And so I just absolutely love that.
Nipsey's the man.
What trying to think. I have a few ones that I want to go to. I just don't know which one. Where do you fart? Where do you fart? We got to edit that shit out. Where do you start
the
first,
house,
Devin?
unfortunately, for my
marketing. I don't. We might not edit that. Where do you start first? Marketing or sales?
We're like, where do I advise someone to start?
Yeah.
Oh, just get sales over with. Just get in there. Just do the tougher one and start in sales, and then go to marketing. I think it's much easier.
Awesome. Let's wrap this up a little bit. Dream vacation destination.
Well, the one that I've been to, Thailand. Love Thailand. The one I haven't gone to yet is Greece. We're working on getting out to Greece. That's what's on the radar. Awesome. What about you guys? Dream destination you have not gone to. What's on the list?
That I haven't gone to would be Australia, I think. I've been to Thailand. I love Thailand as well, but I think Australia would be mine.
Nice.
I did Thailand and Vietnam last summer. Absolutely loved it. My dream, I don't want to take your answer. Greece is up there. Probably an African safari. And we're in the process of planning it now. To, as much as Dale loves when I go on vacation.
This dude's got more vacation than anyone I know. I gotta check the RR handbook. Hold on here.
It's unlimited, and he abuses it. I have to hit you up on that. We have the girls are little. When they're old enough to, I don't know what that age is yet, but we want to do the African safari as well. But like, I can't carry both of them throughout that and enjoy it. So I'll probably hit you up.
And not at 1 and 3 either. You want them to like really enjoy that one.
The zoo is Africa, as far as they know. They're there now. I could just lie and be like, "Yep, this is Africa." I'm like, "Cool, awesome, we love Africa." So that's why I joke with my wife when they're like, "She's like, I want to take them to Tokyo." I'm like, until they're smart enough to know that like wherever I'm, like downtown, like Japantown in the local area is not Japan, then I will take them to foreign countries. But if I can lie, again, back to my leadership skills, I will lie to my children.
I'm in. All right, Devin, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for joining the show. Where can people find you? Where can people subscribe to your show?
You guys are awesome. This was super fun. This is a highlight of my day.
Thanks,
best way to find me is, LinkedIn. If you want to connect there, I'm pretty active there. The newsletter is definitely great. The reader.co/newsletter. Maybe we can just drop the link in the show notes. And then, the Reader YouTube channel as well, where you can find Read Between the Lines. Or if you don't like YouTube and you want to listen with your headphones, Spotify, Apple, Read Between the Lines. This big green logo. You'll see my mug. Can't miss me.
I love the name.
Awesome, man. Devin, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.